Hello and welcome to our 7th Redstone guide video and the second one about comparators. Today we're going to look about the compare and subtract functions of a comparator. So the first thing to realize is that there's two modes to a comparator. Alright, we have the standard mode. You see that they're apart. And then we have one where the little guy in front is popped up. So you see you can right click to get that to raise up. So the first mode, the mode that it starts in when you put it down, is the comparison mode. And so what it's looking to see is basically the rear input mode coming from something is being compared to a side input. And you can actually have two inputs going into the side. And what it's going to do is that if the rear input is a greater value of power than the side values, the side inputs, then it will be on. It'll put power out from here. If the side input is a greater power level than the rear, it turns off the output. And that can be if either or of the side inputs. If either one of those is greater than the rear input, then the comparator will turn off. So right here we have an example of what happens when they're identical. So we have a redstone torch generating 15 power and one redstone connecting it. 15 power, one redstone connecting it. So they're equal amount of power going into the comparator. When in comparison mode, if it's an equal amount, you still get an output. So it only turns off when the side inputs are greater than the rear input. And over here we can see, still in comparison mode, our greater side input, because it's redstone 15 with only one redstone spot, and our redstone torch generating 15 power, but now it's using up 1, 2, 3 power to get here, and so this is actually more power, and it's turned off the output. Okay, so that's the easiest mode. If you want to turn things off because this is greater than this one, this is a great way to use it. It's pretty simple. It can be used for daylight sensors or for pressure pads or anything you want to do. It's a great way to compare two inputs based on the amount of power they generate. Now the subtraction mode is where most people don't really get it. It's a little bit confusing at first. It takes a little while to play around with it and understand what you're doing. But the main idea is that you take the amount of power from the rear, and when you're in a situation like this, where you have a redstone torch and a redstone line going into the redstone comparator, you are generating exactly maximum power. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 squares of power. That's the maximum distance. You see our 16th square is not lit up. It's not active. So we know that we're generating the maximum power possible. So 15. And then we're going to connect this side input into the comparator, and it's going to subtract it. It's going to say, okay, I've got this much power back here. I'm going to subtract this much power from that, and I'm only going to output that much power. So we know we have 15, and we're going to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4 possible squares. Now remember though, we're not subtracting 4. We're subtracting 15 minus the 4 power, so 11. Alright, so what happens when we connect this up? So we see we still have power, and we're going to say what is left over. And so we're going to go, okay, we have 15 power minus this much, which is 15 minus 4, which is 11. So we should have 4. But you'll notice there's actually one missing. And this happens, and I found this was kind of a weird interaction, is that while we should have 15 here, what's actually happening is that we have this becoming lowered. And this square now is counting towards that maximum power. So instead of having 15, what we actually have is 14 from here. And now we are doing 11 minus 14, or 14 minus 11, and we get 1, 2, 3 squares of power. So it's very confusing when I first did it, and one of the problems is that you'll notice now, even if I put that torch there, it's still using up 1 power to go in. So no matter what I was doing, either here or here, you still only get 3 power. But if you move it 1 more over, you'll see you go down 1. So it always is using up 1 square of power to get to inside this for that comparator. So you never seem to be able to get a perfect 15 going in. And you'll notice I can even do that right here. So, oh, this also does not work because we're not putting the power directly into the comparator. There we go. So here you can see we have 0. So this is exactly the same as this, because this coming in is taking up 1 point of power, and this is just sending in exactly 14. And that's why we have 0. It's very awkward at first to get used to, but once you play around with it a little bit, you kind of get used to it. So again, I would definitely try out this stuff, see what you can do with it. The subtraction mode is really for some high-end circuits. I've noticed there's not a lot of simple things to do with it, besides maybe using, again, like the sundials or something to kind of have a fluctuating power level going up and down, and you wanting to have something open or close only at very specific times, and it's just a very tricky thing to do. But we'll talk about it more in class, and we'll see if you guys come up with some uses for it. But that is the comparative mode and the subtraction mode for the comparator, and hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, and you guys will get used to using these things more in class. Alright, so join me next when we discuss how to use this with hoppers and to make a hopper clock, which is one of the best clocks you can make in the game for many different reasons.